The year is 1938. Across Germany, the machinery of terror is expanding. Adolf Hitler's Third Reich has already been in power for 5 years, and its reach extends into every corner of German society. Jews, political dissidents, Roma, Jehovah's Witnesses, and countless others deemed undesirable are disappearing into a growing network of concentration camps. But there is one group whose suffering has remained largely hidden from history's spotlight. Women, mothers, daughters, sisters, resistors, believers caught in the Nazi web of persecution, their stories silenced for decades. 60 miles north of Berlin, near the quiet village of Fürstenberg, Heinrich Himmler ordered the construction of something unprecedented in the Nazi camp system. A concentration camp built exclusively for women. Its name would become synonymous with unimaginable cruelty, Ravensbruck. The persecution of women under the Nazi regime began almost immediately, but it was subtle at first. Women were removed from universities, from professions, pushed back into domestic roles. The Nazis believed women belonged in the home as mothers of the master race. But what happened to the women who refused to conform? The communists who distributed underground newspapers, the Jehovah's Witnesses who refused to renounce their faith, the Jewish women whose very existence violated Nazi racial ideology. In November 1938, construction began on what would become the largest concentration camp for women in the Nazi system. The first prisoners arrived in May 1939. 900 women transferred from Lichtenberg concentration camp. When we first saw Ravensbruck, we couldn't believe our eyes. It looked almost pleasant. There were flower beds, manicured lawns, even peacocks in cages. We thought perhaps this won't be so terrible. How wrong we were. By 1942, Ravensbrück held over 20,000 women from across Nazi-occupied Europe. They came on cattle cars, in trucks, on foot, a procession of human misery that would not cease until the war's end. Each woman was assigned a colored triangle that marked her for life. Red for political prisoners, purple for Jehovah's Witnesses, black for asocials, yellow for Jews, brown for Roma. These small pieces of fabric became markers of survival and death. The first thing they did was shave our heads. Not carefully, not gently. They hacked at our hair with dull razors, sometimes cutting our scalps. They wanted to humiliate us, to strip away our identity as women. In that moment, we ceased to be human beings. The camp that had once housed 900 women now held tens of thousands. At its peak, over 45,000 women were crammed into facilities designed for a fraction of that number. Disease spread rapidly through the overcrowded barracks. What made Ravensbrück unique was not just that it was for women, but how the Nazis exploited specifically female vulnerabilities. Pregnant women gave birth in conditions of unimaginable horror. Mothers watched their children die of starvation. The psychological torture was as devastating as the physical abuse. Ravensbrück was not just a place of imprisonment, it was a vast slave labor operation. Women worked 16-hour days in textile factories, assembled parts for V-2 rockets, and built infrastructure for the Nazi war machine. Those too weak to work faced immediate death. But perhaps most horrifying of all were the medical experiments. Nazi doctors used Ravensbrück women as human test subjects, conducting brutal procedures without anesthesia, without consent, without mercy. They called us rabbits, the women they experimented on. They cut into our legs, infected our wounds with bacteria, inserted glass and wood shards to study infections. Many of my friends died screaming. Those of us who survived carry the scars forever. Within Ravensbrück stood a building known simply as the bunker. Here, women endured solitary confinement, torture, and execution. The sound of women screaming echoed through its corridors day and night. Overseeing this machinery of terror were not just male SS officers, but over 4,000 female guards trained at Ravensbrück. Women torturing women, a betrayal that survivors found almost incomprehensible. I was following orders. We were told these prisoners were enemies of the Reich, dangerous criminals who deserved no mercy. The female guards at Ravensbruck weren't anomalies, they were products of Nazi ideology that taught them these women weren't fully human. Many guards took sadistic pleasure in their power, competing to see who could be most cruel. Maria Mandel, the head wardress, was known for her love of music. She forced prisoners to form orchestras to play while others were beaten to death. Dorothea Bintz, barely 20 years old, became infamous for her whip and her vicious dog. These women chose evil, yet even in this hell, humanity survived. Women shared their meager bread rations, nursed the sick, and created secret networks of support that meant the difference between life and death. We had what we called camp families, women from different countries who looked after each other. A Polish woman might share her soup with a French girl, a Czech prisoner might give her shoes to a Russian. This solidarity kept us alive. They held secret religious services, taught each other languages, shared poetry and songs from memory. In small acts of rebellion, they maintained their dignity and their hope. Even in Ravensbrück, God was present. In the barracks, we would whisper prayers, share Bible verses we had memorized. The Nazis could imprison our bodies, but they could not imprison our souls. As the war turned against Germany, Ravensbrück became a site of mass murder. In early 1945, a gas chamber was constructed. Thousands of women were murdered in the final months before liberation, killed not for strategic reasons, but out of pure malice. On April 30th, 1945, Soviet forces liberated Ravensbrück. Of the approximately 132,000 women who had passed through its gates, at least 50,000 never returned home. What we found there, no words can describe it. Mountains of bodies, women who were nothing but skeletons, children who looked like old people. This was not war, this was something else entirely. In the trials that followed, many of Ravensbrück's perpetrators faced justice. Fritz Suren, the camp's commandant, was executed. Dozens of guards received death sentences or lengthy prison terms. But for decades, the stories of Ravensbrück's women remained largely untold. Their camp was located in East Germany, behind the Iron Curtain, making research difficult. More troubling, the world seemed uninterested in women's suffering during the Holocaust. For too long, the Holocaust was seen as primarily a male experience, but women made up a significant portion of Nazi victims, and their experiences were distinct. At Ravensbrück, we see how genocide was gendered, how women faced unique forms of persecution and violence. Today, fewer than a dozen Ravensbrück survivors remain alive. These elderly women carry within them the memories of 50,000 who cannot speak. People ask me why I keep talking about Ravensbrück, why I don't just forget and move on. But I cannot forget my sisters who died there. I am their voice now. I am their memory. At the Ravensbrück Memorial today, visitors find a wall bearing the names of women from over 20 nations, communists and conservatives, believers and atheists, mothers and daughters, united in suffering and remembered in dignity. Their stories remind us that the Holocaust was not an abstract tragedy, but the sum of individual lives cut short, dreams destroyed, love murdered. In remembering these women, we honor not just their suffering, but their resistance, their solidarity, and their unbreakable human spirit. Ravensbrück stands as a testament to both the depths of human cruelty and the heights of human courage. In the darkness of that place, women found ways to remain human. Their legacy is our responsibility to remember, to bear witness, and to ensure that never again means never again for all people, everywhere.